What are exhausted Zani's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So, the first point that has held true ever since her initial release is that she is absolutely the best possible Spectro DPS that you can have in the game right now. If you have all of the gear that helps her perform at her finest, then she's going to be a really strong Spectro character. In fact, the strongest possible Spectro damage dealer that we have at the minute. She deals more damage than Absolution Phoebe, and all around, if you're willing to make the investment commitment, then she ends up feeling very strong. You're basically never going to struggle with Spectro-related content, and anytime Spectro-related content is shielded, you're going to have an absolute breeze of a time with her, provided that you have all of her premium gear, and that's something that I'm going to emphasize a lot later on. Just know that all of the pros that I am stating with Zani is under the assumption that you have Zani's signature weapon and that you have a Phoebe for her. That is what I am making these pros under. We will talk about that more later. But for now, just know that she is a fantastic Spectro damage dealer, and if that's something that you're lacking and you happen to have a Phoebe on hand, then she's going to be a really good pickup for you. Secondly, she's also just a really good DPS in general. She's easily able to handle both TOA and Whimpering Wastes, because the nice thing with her is that she just wants Spectro Frazzle applied at some point during her rotation. She doesn't always need it to be actively applied on enemies the way that Phoebe does. This then makes her multi-wave feel so much more comfortable, and it means that she's very easily able to deal with wuwa. Her high damage output also means that the trash mobs are basically no challenge for her whatsoever. She's not exactly the best wuwa character there is. We do have better, like Furlova or Triple Fusion, but to be fair, comparing anybody to Furlova is just asking to seem underwhelming. That woman is crazy in wuwa. But anyways, that aside, she is good in that game mode, and she also ends up being very good in TOA, since she just does some really big chunky bits of damage. All around, she ends up being a good pull for basically any account that's struggling with any particular type of content. It doesn't really matter what area of your account that you're struggling with, you're easily going to be able to benefit from Zani. And I should add that if you do have a Phoebe on hand, but you don't have Shakona, then your Phoebe is basically locked to TOA only if you're playing her as a main DPS. Whereas if you get Zani, you're then expanding into being able to play Spectro Frazzle teams in wuwa as well. Now you can just pull for Shakona and play Phoebe DPS in wuwa as well, but generally, it's going to be a lot stronger to use Zani instead. Pulling for Zani whenever you already have a Phoebe ends up creating a very natural progression, because while you can just continue to opt into playing her as a main DPS, ultimately, it is the final goal of the Spectro Frazzle team to eventually get Zani and reach the team's full potential. If you do that, well then congratulations, because you have quite the strong team on your hands. I should also add that Zani's gameplay is really smooth and simple. For the most part, you're usually just basic attacking, and whenever she does her ult finisher, she actually pauses the timer, which is also very convenient. A well-invested Zani is really easily able to clear the middle towers, assuming that there's no high Spectro resistance on the boss. Now, whenever it's not a Spectro-resistant boss, but there is that 10% resistance that TOA gives it, I still find that Zani is generally able to clear just fine, because her damage is genuinely just that good. She is a very strong unit, and you're going to be very satisfied with her performance if you have her full premium setup. Generally, I personally find her playstyle to be very satisfying, as I myself do have the full premium setup, and I generally play Zani as one of my main carries when it comes to hard TOA content, or just hard content in general. She's very, very reliable. You can still expand upon her with skill expression and get better at her gameplay if you want to clear faster. However, if you're a casual that doesn't really care to play super complex characters in super complex ways, then Zani might be for you. I'd say she generally achieves the best of both worlds, but for the most part, she is leaning more towards the casual side. So if that's something that interests you, then that's another pro of hers in my opinion. Generally, her gameplay is quite easy, and I think that's mostly a good thing depending on what type of person you are. However, I will say that if you quick swap like crazy, and you really optimize the team, you are able to push something like your wuwa score pretty high. So it's not that she doesn't have any optimizations, she does, but I wouldn't say that she's as complicated as somebody like Changli, for example. But whether that's a pro or a con is really just going to depend on what type of person you are. Another thing that I want to add is that Zani's high Astrites-based investment is really freaking good. Her sequences are amazing, and her signature weapon, well, it's basically an essential for her, but welcome to Wuthering Waves DPSs. But all around, she is very good with her sequences. Even her S1 is a very noticeable increase in my opinion, and her S2 is also very strong. if you're wondering whether an S2 R1 Zani with an S2 R1 Phoebe is better than an S6 Zani with an S0 Phoebe, then you would still rather go for the S6 Zani, just if you were wondering which type of investment path would be better. However, all around, if you get sequences for basically anybody on Zani's team, she's going to perform significantly better, and she's already very strong at a baseline assuming that you have her full premium team. All around, let's say that you go from an S0 team across the board with signature weapons to getting S2 on everyone, then that's going to be very freaking strong. All around, you get really good bang for your astrites whenever it comes to her team investment. Just anything that you invest is going to go over well. For example, you can even get Shorekeeper S2 for the team because Zani's an attack scaler, and that's not only going to benefit your Zani team, but that's just going to be good for your entire account in general because the majority of DPSs in this game are attack scaling, with the only exception being Cardathea. So all around, you're generally going to have a very good time with her high investment if that's something that you're willing to commit to, and if you already have her baseline investment from her first banner. Alas, we do really need to discuss her flaws, because Zani is a type of character where her flaws are genuinely a deal breaker. Typically speaking, whenever I discuss the cons of characters in these videos, usually they're not so bad to the point where it can totally turn you off of getting a unit. They definitely are considerations against pulling them, but all around you can find some kind of workaround to the point where maybe they'll still provide some value for you. Not with Zani. Her cons are complete deal breakers in every aspect. Aside from the last one that I'm going to get into, that one's not really going to be that important for everyone, but these next two are going to be very relevant in my opinion, with one of them being how expensive her baseline good team is. Listen, yes, you can use Spectro Rover. Spectro Rover does apply Frazzle, and he does good enough damage to the point where he's able to contribute something to the team that's meaningful. Yes, you can play free-to-play Zani and clear, and if you're good enough and you're willing to put in the skill effort, you will get there and you will clear. However, it is undeniably significantly worse than an S0 R1 Phoebe, because with those two things combined, that is 130% amplification for Zani in particular. That is extremely strong, and basically nothing else in the game is able to replace that for her. There will never be another better buffer for Zani than Phoebe. Zani is literally never going to get a better buffer than Phoebe for herself, because Phoebe is just that busted for her. She is such a good Frazzle support, it is absolutely absurd, and there is never gonna be somebody that's able to replace her unless Crow decides to throw us a bone and makes a 4-star version of her that has maybe half of her capabilities, because even that would help the situation a bit, but that's just never happening, let's be realistic. So, whenever you consider that, yeah, her teams are expensive. Listen, the third slot you very much can just put Verena or somebody random, or even Spectro Rover to be honest at S6 because of a Spectro res reduction, but you basically need Phoebe for that second slot. You don't have Phoebe, you might as well just put the Zani-shaped fries in the bag because, goodness me, you are missing out on a lot of performance and it is just not going to feel anywhere near as good. I genuinely think that Zani is a skip if you don't have Phoebe. That's it. No, just don't get her. Don't get her if you don't have Phoebe. Listen, if you insist and like she's your favorite waifu ever, okay, go for it. But the next time that Phoebe appears on banners, get her. And trust me, you are never going to be able to go back. Maybe you've been playing her with Spectro Rover up until this point and you have been clearing because like I said, it is possible to clear with her. And you might think, is it really that necessary? Listen, you'll be able to clear, but you're going to agree with me whenever you get to try it for yourself that Phoebe just feels so much better. It is a night and day difference. And it is so ridiculous how big the disparity is. If you have Phoebe, Zani is a really satisfying, cool character. She's awesome. However, if you don't have Phoebe, then there is no reason to get her. Because I personally think that whenever you get Phoebe, getting Zani next provides a very natural progression. Because whenever you do that, you're able to very easily upgrade your Spectro Frazzle DPS, unlock multi-wave, and then you're able to just all around have a better DPS in general. However, when it comes to Zani, listen, don't get her on her own, don't get her without Phoebe, there is no point. Furthermore, the thing is, she also really needs her signature weapon, and this is a commonality for every Wuthering Waves DPS, so I usually don't like to hold this to them too much, because this is a flaw for every character, and it's more so a pro for characters that aren't as reliant on their signatures. But in Zani's case, because she's already so expensive teammates-wise, and she feels genuinely buns without her best teammate, you also have to add on the factor of SIGs. Not just her SIG, but ideally Phoebe's as well, because Phoebe also provides 30% amplification to her. It all around ends up making Zani a ridiculously expensive unit to make feel good. Listen, she very much can feel good. She very much can be an awesome unit. She can be strong, but she is undeniably expensive. Like, really expensive. And I say this as somebody who plays a good amount of Zani. I really like the character, and I did make that investment. I have S1 R1 Zani myself. I think she's awesome and hilarious, and she has a great character design. But oh my goodness, she is so expensive, and I'm not gonna pretend like she's not. I acknowledge that she does have some other options with like and such, and you can use Spectro Rover. There are other things you can do with her, but I'm not gonna say that those options feel anywhere near as good as using Phoebe because they just don't. And I'm really stressing this because you will regret your pull, I'm just being honest with you. Now, if you insist that your waifu over meta, like you really, really are hell-bent on that, and you really don't think that you're gonna be missing out on much, get her then. No problem at all. But I'm telling you this, if they're rerunning Zani first, there is a chance that Phoebe might be around the corner. I don't know when, but if she is, you gotta get her as soon as possible. And here's the thing, if Phoebe doesn't rerun for a couple of months, then you're left with basically a useless character. So listen, you can say that maybe she's soon and she's worth getting then, but listen, I don't know, I really wouldn't advise it. She's second half, wait for the live, see if Phoebe is confirmed to be on banners for the next patch or not. If she's not, then just skip Zani. There is no point in pulling a character that's going to be dead on your account for ages. Just wait until Phoebe gets a banner first, get her first, then get Zani. Follow the natural progression, you will thank yourself later. Because Phoebe is a self-sufficient unit in TOA, Zani is not. She can work, but she is not going to feel good. And finally, this last con is really just, it kind of just depends on what type of person you are, whether you care or not. But she feels really bad to play in Overworld, because not only do you really need a Spectral Frazzler to help her out, but she needs her ult. She is an ult-reliant character, so she just doesn't really feel good in Overworld in general. I wish she was better in Overworld, but she just doesn't really feel good there in my opinion. Especially not compared to diffusion characters who are really good in Overworld, but maybe that's setting the bar a bit too high. But Zani definitely doesn't really feel that good in Overworld. Playing Overworld Zani is basically just playing Absolution Phoebe, man. You're just going to be doing most of the damage with her instead, even if you're playing her in Confession form, because Overworld enemies aren't really that strong. So with that in mind, she's not really the best pull if you're somebody that cares about exploration in specific, but realistically, you never really pull characters for exploration alone. You pull them for the harder content and then you explore with them. But Zani's just not really that comfortable to explore with. That's just something to keep in mind. I like this character significantly, she's awesome, but I am not going to pretend like she's cheap. Amazing unit, but be aware of what you're investing into. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Zani's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and good luck on your goat lady waifu.